What's up, folks? I'm Private Hudson, and this is Fallout. A lot of people were introduced to this series with Fallout 3. Not me, but I wasn't introduced to this series with this game either. The first one I played was Fallout 2. I played it back in the late 90s or early 2000s when I was somewhere around 10 to 12 years old. I was a big fan of RPGs even back then, but my exposure was mostly limited to console JRPGs. My only experience with a PC one was Diablo. Fallout 2 blew me away. No longer was I forced to play as whiny, insufferable losers like Cloud and Squall from Final Fantasy 7 and 8. This time, I got to build my own character. I could choose my sex, my stats, my skills, my dialogue options, and much more. Creating a character with low intelligence resulted in you speaking like a caveman. People treated you like you're mentally disabled and locked you out of many quests. The freedom was unparalleled, and the replay value was immense as each location has its own series of quests and ending slides. I'll admit, Fallout 2 is a much larger game than Fallout. When I tried playing Fallout for the first time, a few years after Fallout 2, I couldn't really get into it. Many quality of life issues that were fixed in Fallout 2 were really annoying to deal with in Fallout, like not being able to tell your companions to get out of your way when they end up blocking narrow hallways or doors, managing their inventory, or even having them level up, which results in them basically being cannon fodder by the end of the game. Well, guess what? Aside from dog meat, everyone survived in this playthrough. Both of these games taught me that quick save and quick load are the two most important controls on the keyboard. Whether it's Sulik mowing down your entire party with a burst SMG, or Ian and Tycho getting blown up because their armor and HP levels never improve, I learned to save scum like a maniac. The RNG is ridiculous at times. So, how is Fallout in 2024? It's still a masterpiece and remains tied as my favorite game of all time, along with its sequel, Fallout 2. Go watch Tim Kane's videos on YouTube. He's one of the creators of the game. For years I had the wrong impression that this was meant to be a Wasteland sequel, but Brian Fargo couldn't get the rights to Wasteland, so he created Fallout instead. In truth, other than the post-apocalyptic setting, the two series don't have much in common. Fallout was a B project at Interplay that was almost cancelled multiple times. And it wasn't until a few months before release that Brian Fargo wondered why so much of his staff worked overtime for free just to play it. He took a copy of it home one day, realized he had a hit on his hands, but that hit was the creation of Tim Kane, Leonard Boyarsky, Jason Alexander, and a few others. That's when the game finally got the attention it rightfully deserved within Interplay. Well, the purpose of this channel and video isn't to talk about Fallout's tumultuous development cycle. Go watch Tim Kane's videos for that. The purpose here is to review it. Now, a lot of players use the Fallout at 2 mod, which imports the game into the Fallout 2 engine. I said, screw that, and played it as close to vanilla as I could. I played the GOG version, which is identical to the Steam one. Unfortunately, this is the international release, which had children removed from the game. The digital version of Fallout 2 retains the children, so I'm not exactly sure why they were removed from the first one. As far as I remember, playing the game way back in the day, they had no dialogue and weren't part of any quests. The only thing I could think of was they couldn't get their hands on the original source code. Aside from that, the official patches, the only other addition is a high resolution mod, which works to some extent. Although if you alt-tab out of the game, the only way to bring it back up is by going to Task Manager, locating the process, and bringing it back to the foreground. Honestly, none of this prevented me from enjoying the game. Neither did the bugs, the broken ammo system that makes armor-piercing ammo less effective than regular. Yeah, that's right. And a missing quest that prevents one of the factions from ever having a good ending. Fallout is what made me appreciate low-budget, quote-unquote, jank, and small development teams that managed to create something great. It's why I continue to play and enjoy these types of games, and I'm willing to look past their flaws, even though they're clear as day. It's not like they're intentionally made or designed to be broken, it's just that the development team is small and short on cash, but they have a vision like no other. So they make what they can to the best of their abilities. There's a reason that when Tim Kaine resigned during the development of Fallout 2, his two colleagues quit with him and they created Troika Games together. And this team ended up creating another masterpiece, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. So, what is this game about? Well, it's set in a post-apocalyptic world. America and China had a nuclear war, I don't know, let's just say 80 years or so ago, and some people were able to escape into underground shelters called vaults. You're one of these vault dwellers, and you all live a nice, happy life. Only problem is, the water chip for your vault is failing. The overseer of the vault tasks you to go outside and find the chip. Oh, and you have a time limit before the water runs out. So, off you go into the wasteland to explore with absolutely no knowledge of the outside world. You come across friendly settlements, bandit camps, mutated creatures, and super mutants that make up most of the second half of the game. I'm gonna try my best not to spoil things, but this game is almost 30 years old and all the sequels have references to some of the major events of this game. But basically, there is a creature called the Master who dips things into the FEV, also known as the Forced Evolutionary Virus, which turns things into mutants. The Master is one of the coolest and most grotesque villains ever created, and the cult that surrounds him is pretty damn amazing. Some who get dipped retain their intelligence in their new mutant form. If anything, their intelligence and strength increase. Others get superhuman strength but lose their mental capability, resulting in nothing more than becoming physical servants or brutes. It's a truly fascinating game with a compelling story and is the darkest one in the series. Fallout 2 is known for its humor, the constant pop culture references and fourth wall breaking stuff is something I got a little annoyed with as I got older and replayed the game over the years. Fallout, on the other hand, doesn't have as much humor. It's a pretty serious game, it's dark and disturbing, and that gives it a very unique and captivating atmosphere. Now, when it comes to character creation, even back when I was a kid, before things like YouTube and Reddit existed, I could already tell what the optimal way to play the game was. So this game uses a system called Special. S is for Strength, which increases melee damage, carrying capacity, and a little bit of HP. P is for Perception, which increases ranged accuracy and crit chance. E is for Endurance, which gives you hit points and some environmental protection. C is for Charisma, which sadly is kind of worthless in this game. In the sequel, the higher your Charisma, the more party members you could recruit. Here, it might affect barter prices and a speech check or two, but otherwise, it's a pretty useless stat. I is for Intelligence and is the most important stat in the game. The higher your intelligence, the more skill points you unlock each level, and the more dialogue options you have access to. A is for Agility, the second most important stat, as it determines how many action points you have per turn in combat. Max it out to 10, you get 10 action points. That means you can shoot a gun twice that uses 4 action points, and still have 2 left over, which is enough to reload your gun. Lastly, L is for Luck, which increases crit chance and the likelihood of encountering rare, hidden, special encounters. When I was a kid, I would distribute my points this way. Take out everything from Luck, put as much as I could into Intelligence and Agility, 6 into Strength, and the rest into Perception. For skills, I always went for Small Arms, Speech, and Lockpicking. Unfortunately, many of the skills are either useless or can be leveled up by just reading books. For example, Doctor and First Aid should have been combined into a single skill. Big guns and energy weapons don't appear until much later into the game, so if you spec into them early on, that leaves you handicapped in combat. Maybe instead of lockpicking, I would go for pickpocketing sometimes, but managing the inventory in this game is a bit of a nightmare, especially with a trait I picked that greatly reduced my carrying capacity. In this playthrough, I went for a similar build, but I did put a few points into luck and managed to come across several of these super rare special encounters. For traits, which are optional, picking gifted is like cheating. It decreases all of your skills, but it increases all of your stat points by 1. It's a no-brainer. The other trait I picked was small frame, which may have been a mistake. It gives you +1 agility, but greatly decreases your carrying capacity. Managing your companions is a bit of a pain. I spent a good portion of the game pickpocketing them, because that's the only way that you can actually manage their inventory. Managing their inventory was never properly implemented, and trading with them is like trading with a merchant. They expect you to trade for a certain amount of, value for an item, which doesn't really make sense. Sadly, companions were one of the last things added to the game, and it shows, seeing as how bare bones and broken they are with little dialogue outside of their introduction. But you know what? I dealt with it, and I didn't mind it too much. I also played as a female character this time around. I believe all my previous playthroughs were with a male one, and I wanted to see how much, if any, dialogue would change. Unfortunately, very little did, and some characters still refer to me as a man. Fallout 2 has way more content for female characters, and is a game with a more reactive world, but that doesn't change my love for Fallout, and what these developers were able to accomplish with such a small team. The most notable change in dialogue was with a female member of the Brotherhood of Steel. We got into a small debate that we should be called sisters and not brothers because, obviously, we're women. It was amusing, and I wish there was more of it. Combat is turn-based. You only have direct control over your character. Your companions act on their own, for better or for worse. Sometimes Ian likes to put his pistol away and take out a knife that does no damage, so be sure to not give your companions any melee weapons, other than Katya. And give them plenty of ammo and stim packs. You have regular attacks, or you can use an aimed attack using an extra action point. Aiming at the eyes or the groin has a lower chance to hit, but if it is successful, it increases the chance that the attack is critical, and it might kill them in one shot, which results in a lovely death animation. I would argue that Fallout not only defined the future of computer RPGs, but also evolved the genre. Just as I think Doom and Wolfenstein 3D are still phenomenal games that are fun to play to this day, despite their old graphics and engine limitations, I feel the same way about Fallout. It is a timeless classic. The story and lore that these developers put into the game are miles above anything Bethesda or Todd Howard have done for the series. The grotesque appearance of the Master is something I've never seen before, and his backstory is both sad and terrifying. I believe every RPG gamer should play Fallout, whether it's the original, janky, buggy, semi-vanilla version I played, or one with fan patches applied. You owe it to yourself. Quests have multiple solutions, the story is gripping, and being able to convince a super mutant that you are one of them, to stealth into their compound and solve quests with a non-violent approach, was groundbreaking at the time. And for the love of God, do not forget to take a bunch of anti-rats before you visit the Glow. Trust me on this one. So many players, present company included, soft-lock themselves in this area. Use all your save slots, save often, and do not go to the Glow unless you have a bunch of anti-rats. Alright folks, I'm Private Hudson. If you've enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you folks next time.